Hello. We are just waiting for Marty, and I believe. Marty,
Hi, can you hear me or see me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Let me turn my camera on.
Hello.
Hi.
We
Gray,
are
gray and white.
hair hair color twins too. Like my red is pretty
Oh,
close to your red.
yeah, it is. It looks gorgeous. Let me
Thank
see.
you.
I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Very
It's
nice. She did a
fading.
good job.
I was gonna say it's fading pink. They did a rose gold. So like I have a pink color depositing conditioner. So I have a feeling like once it fades, it's gonna be like pastel pink, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, like all the cool kids.
I know. You only live once. So how are you?
Absolutely. I am recovering from the loss.
OSU?
Yes, yes, but we won't go. We won't go there. We won't go there.
I don't even
Um,
know who they were playing.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's the biggest rivalry in football,
Oh.
college football. Michigan. Yeah. Yeah. But
Oh, yeah, yes.
yeah, it's okay. But it's okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
good. I'm good.
I'm excited to chat with you today. I know the purpose of this live was really to get to know a little bit more about your organization. And as much as I feel like I know you, I consider you a friend, there's an awful lot I don't know about, like how your organization came to be. What made you so passionate about telling the stories of the disenfranchised? I mean, I guess we could start just with the name of your organization. Like, where did you even come up with the clever play on words of Whale of a Tale?
Yeah. We are Whale of a Tale, and it's WAIL of a Tale, TALE, like storybook tale. And it's so weird. Even prior to my kids, I wanted to start my own company, and call it Whale of a Tale. I was in Second City. My ex-husband was, he did. This was when the internet was first going. He did. Web pages and web design. And so, unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, that never came to fruition. So I always kind of had it in the back of my mind. Whale of a Tale is really, I think, encapsulates our mission also, because we educate through documentary film, and we amplify the voices of women in marginalized communities, right? So Wail, we are wailing, WAIL, wailing to the world, these tales. Uh, I really love that play on words, that whole, dad joke thing. One of my kids really loves it. The other one, not so much. But I really enjoy the play on words. So that's Whale of a Tale. Also, when we think about whales, right, we think about them breaching up out of the water, coming down and making a big splash. So there's a lot of metaphor there also, right? So
Yeah.
whales are powerful, they're graceful. They really, grab your attention. And when they come down, they create all of these waves. So Whale of a Tale creates waves for social change, right? We want our message being carried out and carried out and carried out, which is, which is a great way to think about our organization in conjunction with the whale. and that physical presence, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't
yeah,
realize it had so many layers. That's really brilliant.
thanks.
What was,
It's Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so what was your background that even led you into documentary storytelling?
That's a great question. um, and I'm going to talk about my kids for a minute. When my kids were born, I really felt a strong need to show them that they can do anything to make the world a better place for
Mm.
them. It's something, and a lot of moms that I've talked to, have, really feel the same way. Is what drives them. So I went back to school when my kids were very little, and the vast majority of my undergrad was in women's studies, so it gave me a
Mm.
really good base. Um, as far as social justice movements and being involved in women and what all of that meant. And it really helped me discover who I was and what it was about, and really do that self-reflection and growth. Um, I finished that degree with communication production, and I was looking to do a documentary uh, when my child, Parker, came home from second grade, visibly upset about a test that they would have to take, the following year. In fact, her teacher told her that if she did not pass this test, that they would have to do summer school.
Mm.
She's in second grade. So there was all this pressure, pressure, pressure. So what I really enjoyed about college, and I still do, I'm very theory driven, is the intellectual aspect of everything and connecting all the dots. So, what getting back to the story, uh, when they came home from school, I knew that I had to figure out, what was going on. Both my kids were just starting in school. And it was a very confusing time. There was a big push. We have to equity, equity, equity in education. We need to educate our kids. So we see all that, upheaval of the time for education, different education policies. So the more that I dug, the more that I saw that we were really going to be heading down a um, not a good path with regards to policy, because what happened in Chicago, I was in Chicago when I did this film. I lived there for 22 years. And what we saw with the No Child Left Behind policy is public schools being closed and private schools being opened. So
Mm.
they were taking money,
Yeah.
right, from public schools into private schools. It was a way of making money. It was another way to really strip public the public school system.
Yeah.
And we saw in Chicago the gentrification of neighborhoods, um, the marginalization of these BIPOC communities being pushed even further, all kinds of, whether explicit or implicit, racial bias towards these groups. Um, it really it really opened my eyes, I think, to a
Mm.
much larger political picture. Um, and I really felt the need to tell this story. And then I look back and we can see the devastation that's wrought in the American health system
Yeah.
by these, starting with No Child Left Behind. My film was one of, if not the first, to look at the school to prison pipeline,
Wow.
right? To show how that happened. And I'm incredibly proud of that work. It was used to educate the Chicago Teachers Union. And unfortunately, it's still relevant today.
Mhm.
And it's not helping anybody. What I saw also was that with the testing, right, we're taking critical thinking, sorry, out of the classroom, right? You had to memorize, you know, there was such pressure on these kids to perform and exceed, you had to compete to get into a good high school,
Yeah.
right? So it was just a very sad, sad thing, continues to be. So that's really what started me down the path of documentarian. It was really this investigative reporting and academic academic connection, because it wasn't being reported, and it is now.
Yeah.
We see what it's done. So um, yeah, that's how I got into that's how I got into filmmaking, and I love it. I'm a teacher,
Hmm.
and that's what we need. We need stories that tell the truth,
Yeah.
right?
I agree. And I know one of your other documentaries is about uh, people who have been through domestic abuse who may be here illegally and the challenges that um, faces, which I can't even imagine. But what made you look at the long COVID story that was brewing? How early on in this pandemic did you realize, wow, this is a genuine problem with this population and there's a story to be told here?
Well, let me tell you. So I was in Colorado working on a second master's in public health when the pandemic broke out. Okay. So I took a job in my new community, doing COVID investigation.
Oh,
So I was there, started my job August of 2020. And, the went through it. I was in a very conservative area in Colorado, Grand County. So it's a bunch of ranchers, a ski resort community. So these are people with wealth, and very conservative. So it was not a fun experience. But um, as I progressed in my position, and started hearing and then listening to people who, recovered and then got sick again, right? Or just never got better from COVID. Uh, and it was concerning, and we were all learning this on the fly, right? Even after vaccination. It was Delta, and I think like 2 or 3 weeks after people had had their second vaccination, I believe is when Delta hit, and um, people were still getting sick. People were still developing long COVID, and I saw the trajectory of what the government and local government were going to do, which is, take away mitigation.
mm-hmm.
We have the vaccine. We don't need to mitigate anymore. And that was a red flag.
Yep.
That was a bit red flag. So that was the middle of last year, the middle of 21, when all of that was taking place. Um, and let me just say also, the people that I worked with, public health people on the ground in these communities, are smart, dedicated. They know their community. They want to keep these people safe. And we were all stuck, right? We were all stuck in this place where we couldn't do what was best, I believe, for the community because we didn't have the support of, state and federal government.
Yeah.
And I made the decision in October of last year that I would quit my job and start Wail of a Tale, this 501c3. We are a nonprofit documentary film organization. And December 31st was my last day. And we have been going strong ever since. So
I think it is very important that we highlight that you are a nonprofit, because as we have seen others pop into our community who are not the face of a nonprofit, but rather the face of a for-profit, I think it's really important that we're actually amplifying the voices of those who want to amplify our voices for the betterment of society, not for the lining of their own pockets. So I
we
feel very
we very
strongly.
much are good. Thank you. We're very much good makers. I have some tremendous people behind me, and let me just say, I have been working without a paycheck
Mm,
for for this time, and everyone on our board, nonprofit boards do not get paid.
yeah.
So we are scrimping and scrapping and really um, trying to make a go of this and do a professional piece,
Hmm.
right? And that really, it costs money to do that. I have this amazing, and everybody go look him up. His name is Asa Featherstone. He's my director of photography, or will be. We're hoping he wants to do it, and I want to hire him. But what people don't realize is documentaries isn't someone going around with a camera and doing interviews. I mean, it costs money to do a documentary, and you know, in order for me to hire Asa, I have to pay him
Yeah.
what he's worth. So I wouldn't still be here doing this after more than a year if I didn't feel that it was a story that needed to be told. Okay. We look at, I mean, I met you and so many other um, long COVID people, and I've been carrying these stories, hundreds of stories around with me now for a very long time. And I would very much like to get them out and share them with the broader public, because the broader public doesn't know.
Yeah.
What I what I'd really like to showcase also are marginalized communities, right?
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people that I know and I talk to, we're all very lucky because we are privileged, right? We
Yeah.
have connections to doctors.
Yeah.
A couple of my um, people on my advisory board, they have great medical care, when they're still sick. So that's
No,
um,
I'm a great
yeah,
example of that. I feel
yeah,
like, I'm out there and I do get a lot of opportunities to share my story. My story isn't the one that should be told. It's dramatic because I was a marathoner who can't grocery shop now, but I have access to free health care up here. I am well taken care of. I have friends who are primary care physicians. That's how I was able to get my doctor, was my primary care physician is a buddy of mine who went around his office and said, "Hey, who believes in long COVID? I got a girl who needs to get hooked up." And
yeah,
he handpicked someone who believed in long COVID. People do not have that luxury. And then the fact that I don't have to pay for, any of my doctor visits or prescriptions. And I know Canadian healthcare is not perfect. Ontario healthcare is certainly not perfect, but it is way better than what so many people in the States deal with and in other parts of the world. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that you're telling the stories of people who are being further damaged. I mean, I'm hanging on with this excellent care. And again, someone in the comments said, and yeah, doctors don't even know what to do with us, which is true. But I'm still getting care that other people are not getting because of the place of privilege that I'm in.
yeah. And I think that we are going to, well, I'm sure we already are, but we're going to miss a lot of people who don't have that access. Um, we're going to miss the opportunity to help them and to really look at health equity in the US, right? It's all about equity, 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 right? That's the big talk. We need a healthcare system that's going to provide for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Maternal, when you have, maternal death here in the U.S. is ridiculous in our country. It's just absolutely ridiculous that we should have anybody dying, um, uh, women dying while giving birth. Still, it's
Yeah.
just atrocious. Um, so the documentary is going to focus on BIPOC communities, LGBTQI plus communities. One of my children is child is LGBTQ, and I'm concerned about their safety every day. And we know
Yeah.
we've seen the laws that are being enacted that
Yeah.
takes their rights away and
Yeah.
allows them to be who they want to be. Um, so that's important to really look at. Um, immigrant, migrant workers,
Mhm.
Native American, of course. We've connected with organizations and people who can help get those stories out there. So for the past year, I've been connecting with beautiful humans like Beth and um, Dr. Ely, Wes Ely.
Yeah.
We're going to be interviewing him. We're going to be talking to virologists, epidemiologists, as well as these individuals who may not um, who may not have access yet to
Yeah.
healthcare or don't. So
And I think it's important to call out too that so many people end up in this position because even before they get sick, they a lot of them tend to work frontline jobs. They don't have the luxury of working from home. They don't have the luxury of putting themselves in a position to stay safe. And in order to keep a roof over their head, they're put in these positions where they get sick and then don't have access to the care they need for the sickness they got because they don't have the luxury of what so many of the rest of us have, so many of us have. It's just this cycle of
yeah, we're damaging a whole generation of
yeah.
people. We really are, and it's frightening, and it's I don't believe politically savvy. We're not going to have
Yeah.
people who can work these jobs like China's policy. They're in it for the long haul, right? Because they're going to have a population that's healthy and can work. Not that I think that they're extreme and we're an extreme.
Yeah.
I think that we definitely need to be meet somewhere in the middle. And speaking of stories, there's a woman that I'm going to be talking with later this week who was a frontline worker. She worked at a hospital and then at a nursing home during COVID. She was a nursing aide, you know, uh, did not make a lot of money. Of course, they don't, and caught long COVID, was fired from her job
Wow.
after catching COVID. Well, and we really want to look at that legality too, right? Employers don't want to be held accountable, so yeah, we really want to show the effects of um, COVID and long COVID and what it did to these humans who
Yeah.
were helping us, keeping us, safe, trying to keep us safe. Um, yeah, there are several other stories too, just like her that we will be looking at if we can get some funding. I
Yeah.
don't say if, when we get the funding, when we get our funding.
when for sure.
So yeah.
And
Uh, Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know you had I'm looking at notes. You had health of nurses and doctors. Has that come up quite a bit that you've come across a lot of frontline workers who either have long COVID or just adversely impacted?
Several. One woman in California, she's a cardiologist,
Hmm.
and she she's in and out of the hospital still. Was a marathoner like you, and by the grace of God, she can work from home through, she can't go into the hospital anymore and work, but she can um, research and do things from home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and her colleagues, also, a lot of them are sick. I mean, it's coming down to there. A lot of people are either sick or leaving the profession, and there aren't a lot of cardiologists in her area anymore because they just can't. They just can't
Yeah,
perform like they used to. So it's it's just it's I don't know what to say. It's been I mean, this is very heavy. This is very heavy material, very heavy um, uh,
yeah.
stories. And yeah, yeah,
It it's been hitting me pretty hard the last few weeks. I think I was talking to Heather, someone about it the other day, and it's just I have so many conversations with long haulers who don't know how they're going to keep a roof over their head next month. And, I can't imagine anyone who has a job where you have to stand or you have to move around. I've always said I couldn't do it. I would be on disability now if I could even qualify for it because I can't I can't. That's just something I can't do. And for people who were sales or massage therapists or any kind of activity where you have to move around a lot, they physically can't do the thing, their career that they've been doing 20, 30, 40 years. And now they don't know what to do next. They might look for, some kind of work at home job where maybe they can be on the phone but even the exertion of learning a new job is too much. And they genuinely are on the brink of homelessness month after month, and they're relying on friends and family to scrape together enough, but at some point that goodwill is going to run out, and what's going to happen to all these people?
yeah. What is going to happen to all these people? There's a
Yeah.
woman in Georgia who was working for Walmart. She was in the HR department at this Walmart store and got COVID. She actually died. She said that, when she was in the hospital, she could see, how everybody says they can see themselves
Yeah.
above. She actually saw them working on her, and
Wow.
she came back, and it was like some ridiculously short amount of time, like 2 or 3 months later, she was back at work. Okay.
Wow.
And she's on oxygen constantly now. I think she only gets up to about between 80 and 90. I mean, not a healthy
Yeah.
place to be for your oxygen level. Um, and after she got back, within a short amount of time, she was written up 3 times, and they told her that she could either quit, or she could either be fired, or she could work as a cashier with a $2 an hour pay cut.
Wow.
So she is working as a cashier 40 hours a week with oxygen. And that's her life now.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
imagine.
And I think that, as a U.S. citizens, America, we are such individualized people. We, the whole bootstrap and, we can do anything, we can survive, and I can work, it's just so incredibly unhealthy and dangerous
Yes.
for long haulers. Um, and there just is not enough information out there that we're
Yeah.
not providing what needs to, the information to the general population.
Yeah.
It,
And
I was talking, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and all the while, the folks with ME/CFS who've been dealing with this their whole lives or decades or however long are screaming, saying, if you would only listen to us, we saw this coming. We saw post-viral illness on the horizon. We spotted it as soon as it started popping up, and people still didn't listen. And I'm appreciative of the research that is building on the backs of those experts, those few experts who specialized in post-viral illnesses. But and I think even you mentioned Dr. Wasili. I think even the study that he's a part of, the big collective, is with Dr. Amy Prost. I forget her last name, but she was like the chief um, researcher for ME/CFS and post-viral illnesses before this whole thing broke out, and they're building off the back of her research. I'm hoping more of that takes place, because while I do think there's so much we don't know, when you log on to Twitter and you see the ME/CFS community there, there's a lot they do know, and they've helped guide us away from dangerous therapies and things that have been proven not to work. And that whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps, push through it. I even see long haulers, talk about like, I got to keep fighting, I got to keep pushing through this. No, you need radical rest.
No.
You have to rest, and pushing through is going to make you worse. And for a lot of us who are type A or just like, driven to get at it, we have to shut that part of our brains off and just switch to using that same amount of energy that we would to push through to rest.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you are on here. I'm so thankful for Cynthia Adnig, who's on our board too, who really was taught also by ME/CFS individuals how to take care of herself and frankly how to survive, right? Because we weren't she wasn't getting the help that she needed from the hospital or doctors or anybody. So and I'm so proud of her also because I don't want to say proud, but um, she really she really devotes so much of her time to talking to people, new people with long COVID who don't have access or who don't understand what's happening to their bodies, and really gives them the advice that they need. And she's just phenomenal that way. Um, and I'm very, very, very lucky to have her on our team to and to really guide us down that path. She helped a friend of mine personally who had um, an autoimmune disease, and I'm not going to remember Kawasaki. Prior to getting COVID, and literally there was a message on Facebook. I don't think I'm going to make it to my next doctor's visit. And she reached out to him and really told him, gave him some good things that he
Yeah.
could do to really just get him through to until he could get back to the hospital.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's scary. It's so
Very scary. It even, my husband and I got the bivalent booster 2 days ago, and the shot just absolutely kicks my butt. I get very, very severe pain from it, body aches. And it even, my poor husband, it scares him to watch because he never knows, is that, the normal pain that normally kicks in every day around 7 o'clock. And I'm usually kind of like moaning and, struggling with the pain. Or is this getting to a point where we need to go to a hospital? We need to do something. Like, how 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 much am I
anything.
just tolerating because I've gotten used to tolerating it? And what point do you get worried that like something serious happens and you really need to have that pain looked at? And it's never not scary, I think, when things get significantly worse than baseline, and especially when you can't tie it back to like it's much easier for me to wrap my head around if I did something, you know, let's say I went to a mall 2 days ago. Well, today I'd be in bed, and that would make sense because I took more steps than I normally would have. But when it comes out of the blue and you don't know what you did to put you in bed and you don't know why you're in so much pain and there's just no logical tie to it, it gets very scary.
And thank you so much for doing this. I know that this is a is one of your you're expending your energy for me. So I really, really appreciate you and
I only do
thank you.
this. You're welcome, but I only do this for special people, and it's the least I can do, given that you know for all that you're doing to tell our stories. So
Uh, that's why I'm here. That is that is what we really need. What I think the community really needs is a political movement. We need a political pressure campaign,
yeah,
right? So they and I'll explain our long and short game uh, with Whale of a Tale. So our short game is looking at is doing this 90 to 120-minute documentary and getting it to film festivals, getting, you know, having people talk about it, getting it, you know, on Netflix or Hulu. That's the goal. That's the short, but that's just the short game, right? The long game is to cut it and do a docu-series and get it into classrooms,
mm,
sixth grade and up, right? So we are informing critical thinking skills. We're teaching kids about health inequity,
hmm,
who has care and who doesn't. We're educating them on long COVID, what that looks like, what that is, um, you know, progress being made to help people, right? And to really drive empathy. I think that our school system, and you can tie everything back in. I really think that we need to bring that critical thinking, empathy, emotional intelligence into our classrooms uh, uh, to to really be able to save our democracy at this point, right?
yeah,
Um, and like I was out yesterday. I got my nails done yesterday, and I was talking to the technicians who were doing it, and these were kids. They were 22, 24 maybe, and they had absolutely no idea what long COVID was.
wow,
They had no they had no idea about what was happening right around them,
yeah,
right? So I went to this nail salon because they wear masks,
yeah,
and that's the only reason that I patronize them. And how, how we're creating a generation of people who are going to have these very serious conditions. And just to circle around to, I'm concerned when I see I'm concerned when I see JP Morgan Chase, um, Amazon, CVS Pharmacy getting into the healthcare game.
hmm,
It harkens back to the uh, to education policy. I think we really are going to need to be very careful moving forward in how because we're talking about equity, right? We're talking about health equity. Everybody needs it. You know, we need to do this. How if we have these players coming in, how are we going to hold them accountable uh, for that equity? Are they going to have, clinics in downtown Chicago and on South Side Chicago? Are they going to have clinics in rural Colorado where they
Yeah.
can't, where they don't have doctors? Because we are going to need that in the next, what, 3, 5, 10 years. It's going to
Yeah.
be an epidemic. And it's concern. I'm very concerned that um, we're going to see what happened with education policy as far as having um, these this
Hmm.
marginalization of the healthcare system.
Yeah. We saw it. I don't know if it was I'm sure it happened in the US, but I know it was a huge problem here. We completely saw the healthcare inequality by neighborhoods when it came to vaccine distribution. The vaccines were
Mm.
magically showing up in more affluent neighborhoods where there were, 12 different pharmacies that had it, and there might be one pharmacy serving the same population size in an underprivileged neighborhood trying to do, to vaccinate that same size population out of one place.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it, and it's
yeah.
just it just shone a light on the bigger problem. And I know, you know, a lot of us do have to travel. I live in a smaller town. I do travel to bigger cities for my healthcare, and I'm used to that because I live in a smaller town. That makes sense because our population is a little smaller, so it makes sense that you would go towards a population center. When you have an existing population center and you have people who need to be served, not meeting their healthcare needs is criminal, to be honest.
Absolutely. Well, we saw CVS pulling out their pharmacies from Southside Chicago, from rural communities. Their excuse was because we want to, get into the clinic game. We want to come back with being in healthcare, and that, so are you going to open up those clinics where you took out your CVS pharmacy?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the scary part. And you can, like in my neighborhood, I can go anywhere. Probably have about 5 or 6 different CVSs or Walgreens in a 5 mile radius. Um, but where my daughter lives, um, she purposely took an apartment. She's working for Children's Hospital,
Yeah.
and she's learning, she doesn't have access to a grocery store, she doesn't have access to a pharmacy. She is in it is a food desert, a health desert. People don't have access. In the neighborhood used to be, the ghetto, where and there it's gentrifying that area. And really, it's the only place that she could afford, really, to live, to be as close to work as she could. Um, but yeah, there's all kinds of equity issues that are happening, and that we don't know. I think that when we grow up and we have our experiences, we don't necessarily see or understand the differences in other communities or people of different colors, different places, different countries. And that needs to change.
Yeah.
That really needs to change, which is why getting the documentary into schools to really show this and have kids understand is important.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. That's brilliant. So, how can we help? What are next steps for you guys as an organization?
We are ready to roll. I could go out tomorrow and start filming. Look us up in the IRS. We are a 501(c)(3). You can write off anything that you donate. If you can't donate, no problems. I certainly understand this community with financial issues, but like our social media. tell your friends, groups, family members, your professional communities, get the word out, have them help us. We really want you to join us for the long haul, not just the long haul of your stories, but the long haul of health equity and really building that better system. So we can so we can really educate this new generation and generations after that, have build in that empathy. That is why I am here. That is who I am. I am a teacher. I
Mm-hmm.
am a teacher, and a frustrated teacher because
Yeah.
I uh, we we need to do something, and it's past time. It really is, when we don't have people understanding what's happening.
Yeah. I think something you said earlier really struck me, and that was basically that empathy is going to be the key to saving our democracy. And I couldn't agree more. And I think the earlier children who maybe aren't being taught that lesson of empathy in the home, the earlier that they're hearing that in their schools, the better off we're all going to be. Because I think when kids see their friends dealing with social justice issues, they're far more likely to speak up because they recognize that inequality. Um, and I think if they were to see how far more prevalent the inequality is than they even realize, I think it would just talking about ripple effects. I mean, ripple effects for elections to come. I mean, we saw it even in the midterms. You know,
Yeah,
it was the
thank
younger
God.
generation that was saving things because they they realize the importance of equity. So the fact that your project has long term goals into the school system, I just absolutely love.
Yeah, we want to make those waves, right? We need your help carrying out the message,
Yeah,
right? Getting us recognized, getting us out there, and really building up our social media platforms, uh, talking to different long hauler or MECFS or POTS groups, and getting our voice, so we can amplify yours, because um, that is why I am here. I truly believe that this is a calling for me to make these films and really tell the stories to to help people understand. We're all about uh, statistics, right? Numbers, and looking at those numbers, but then what is behind that, right? Well, what are behind those statistics? And that's where our nonprofit comes in. That's what we look at, and that's what we examine. We can talk about numbers all day long, but we really need the story to make the change, right?
yeah, agreed. And honestly, the stories that are being amplified to date are far too many people who look like me. And not that, you know, my story isn't important. I'm not speaking for the whole community. And I think it's really important what you're doing to tell the rest of the stories.
Yeah. Um, that's why, yeah, I am desperate to do that. And production costs, it costs about $2,000 for a full day on a set doing interviews, right? That's for my director of photography, equipment rental, um, you know, uh, the setup. That's a 10-12 hour day,
Yeah,
right? Um, Getting insurance. We need liability insurance for Whale of a Tale, right? So liability insurance is a grand 1,200, I believe. These are very real costs that we need, legal costs. Thank goodness we have a pro bono lawyer who's absolutely wonderful,
Mm.
Bricker here in Columbus, Ohio, who's who is helping us. And like I said, I have a great marketing team, Steve and Samanda. Samanda worked for Netflix doing marketing. And Steve has been the CEO, COO of different companies. So we have a really great team. My IT guy, John, freaking amazing. He is military, served all over the world in combat zones, doing
Wow.
IT security, doing communication security.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, he's pretty impressive. He's pretty impressive. So I'm sorry. So, yeah, and we just brought on two new members, also a new and Sanja, who are doing they're our treasurer, department treasurer. Sanja's our treasurer, and put together the budget and the infrastructure, really to make us accountable, make us transparent, make sure that we get filed on time for the 501(c)(3).
Mm-hmm.
There are all these factors, putting together a nonprofit that people really don't think about,
Yeah.
and we really fall into that weird cavern, that weird place where we're a 501(c)(3), but we're not a direct service, right? So it can be hard to get different grants and things because we don't do direct service.
Yeah.
And we're a film company, so it's and people don't really understand how all of that works and fits in. Because when you think of a film company, you think, oh, well, they have backers, they have money. And we actually have a package. If you want to become a producer, you can we have different packages that you can buy, where you can come to the premiere. You'll get end credit recognition. If you know of any organizations who are health equity or equity focused, we they'll have a producer credit, executive producer credit, depending on the amount that they give. So we're really, doing all that we can and getting this
Mm-hmm.
information out, and yeah,
So I
that's the
would,
woat. That's the whale of a tale.
yeah, so I would recommend, I follow you on all your socials, I'm pretty sure. So please, if anyone's listening, go follow all the socials. Um, we're just so grateful for what you're trying to do and for the thought. This isn't just about getting stories out. This is getting stories out to facilitate significant political, cultural change. And that is a lofty goal and a worthwhile one. And I'm so excited that that's the direction you guys are headed towards.
I'm excited too, and I so appreciate you doing this for us. Um, I really do. This is, we are making waves for social change.
Yeah.
And please, yes, like us on social media, get the word out.
Yeah.
I appreciate you and everybody who I've met and the stories that I've heard, over the course of the past year plus. Um, we're here for you.
Yeah. I know. Thank you. All right. Well,
Thank
I think
you.
I'm hitting my live
Yeah,
wall. So
yeah,
it was lovely
absolutely. I
to
get
talk
it.
to you.
You too. I want to come up and see your Christmas stuff.
Oh, I was garlanding right before this. I always do you won't be shocked. I always do a homemade garland where I like dry oranges and string them with cranberries and you know
Oh,
a whole country to do. So I'll post
I'm
pictures.
just please, yeah. I'm just excited I made a sweet potato pie.
Ooh, that sounds lovely. For Thanksgiving?
Uh, yeah, for Thanksgiving. But that's totally not me. That's totally not who I am. So I was very proud of myself. But anyway,
Congrats.
anyway, thank
Well,
you again. And go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing. Thank you so much. This was lovely.
Talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye bye.